So the Democratic Party is in total ruin. And anyone who's been paying attention to politics for the past year, or at least 6 months, would know that is a fact. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit, why I think that is. As someone who's been a registered Democrat the whole time that they've been voting. But I'll tell you what, that's about to change. And I'm serious about that. And here's why. So, since the now the Democratic Party now is a party of women, and I don't mean that in a negative way or to be to be rude in any way, but the truth. Since the 90s, the Democratic Party has been majority women. 60% or so of registered voting Democrats are women, and have been for 30 years now. And so if you think that the Democratic Party votes with the interests of women in mind, you might be right, because they are majority women. So it does make sense why initiatives and laws and just, I guess, the general ideology of the party is focused more on women issues, or at least 60% of the time would be focused on women issues compared to men issues. And so that makes sense. And conversely, I guess it would be the case that the Republican Party would be 40% women and 60% men made up of. And so some could say, well, that makes sense why then that the Republican Party might focus on men's issues a little more than women's. So just by the numbers, I can see how that makes sense. And if I think about how the Republican Party and the Democrat Party have voted, or what type of initiatives they try to act into law, how they try to change society, yeah, it does seem like the Democrat Party does focus a little more on women's issues, a little more intensely. So I think in order for the Democrats to, and I think it finally has come to a head. It finally has come to a point where young men have recognized this, and they voted. They changed their voting habits because of it. So, like just 5 years ago, young men voted 40% Democrat to 20% Republican. Like there was twice as many young men who voted Democrat than Republican just 5 years ago. Now, literally 2024, 2025, it's even. The Democrats have lost 10% of the young men's vote, and the Republicans have gained 10%. And that's a huge number of people. That's a substantial number of people that the Republicans have gained in the last 5 years. And I think it has to do with we're reaching a breaking point in the breakdown of society and and values, the American values. We're reaching a breaking point. The boomer generation, by the time they were 30 years old, 80 to 90% of them were married. The millennial generation, by the time they were 30 years old, 60% of them were married. And Gen Z, by the time they were 30 years old and are 30 years old, 30% of them are married. So see the trend. It's being cut in half as the generations age. And that's really drastic, and you have to ask yourself, why is that happening? A lot of that, most of that, has to do with the economy and how difficult it is to get ahead and succeed and to do things like buy a home. You can raise a family in an apartment, sure, but it's not ideal. You don't want to do that. You don't want to have to do that. You only do that when you're forced to do that. No backyard, no privacy. You've got people on almost every wall making noise below and above. Getting groceries is difficult. Parking is difficult. No pets, or if you do, you got a small one. You don't want to live like that, and you don't want to raise a family like that. You can live like that in certain periods of your life, no problem. That's actually, how it should be. When you're a young adult and you're developing your career and you're single, apartment life is awesome. But when you're developing a family, or when you're wanting to prepare yourself to develop, to have a family, apartment's not it. And we know this. And so, obtaining real estate, obtaining a house, you don't have to own it, but being able to financially afford to pay to live in a house is essential to starting a family, to preparing yourself to start a family. And this is both women and men. But the difference, and this is the truth, and you can try and argue that it's not the truth, but it is the truth, that the difference is men are culturally and expected by society to be able to finance the family, because it's rooted in biology, and it starts from biology, like we've talked about, and then it continues on to the modernization of society and how we earn a living, how we make money. That has to happen alongside of the child rearing and developing. So the woman is the one who's biologically designed to do that, more so than the man, quite literally. So the more difficult it is for young men and men to get jobs, full-time jobs, good paying jobs, jobs that keep up with inflation, which none of us have. Practically none of us have jobs that keep up with inflation. The more difficult that becomes, the less you're going to see family creations happen. And we see it in the numbers. We see it in the data that it's not happening, and we see it all around us. It's not happening. There's far fewer children playing in the parks, on the streets, in public sports leagues. There's far fewer young adults entering the workforce and preparing to have families to continue the American traditions and to ensure that America lives on strong. It's not happening. It's happening at a reduced rate. And so we have to do something about that. Young men recognize that we have to do something about that to help ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I mean the men and the younger men. They realize that something has to change for that to change, for the opportunities to increase, and for them to be able to find jobs that pay a living wage, a thriving wage. Really not a living wage, a thriving wage. You need a thriving wage to provide for more than one mouth. Yours, your wife's, your children, your child. You need a thriving wage to do that. And those are rare occurrences, and that's why the family home is breaking down. And this is why young men see this, and this is why they're voting more Republican instead of Democrat, because they go, well, we only have two parties. Which one is attempting to do anything Which one has people in this party that are saying anything about these issues, about my issues, that are affecting my ability to have a family and continue the American dream, or to even have the American dream for myself, and to provide an opportunity for my children to have the American dream, is being threatened? Who is talking about changing that and making it easier for me and my peers? Because it's very difficult for everyone to get a job these days, and it's even more difficult for men to get a job. And this we've seen, we've heard of, and we've seen stories about people applying for jobs, changing their gender, and how much more interview opportunities they get, or how many more replies they get from the companies, like double, triple, 5 times the replies to a woman applicant compared to a men applicant, because of preferential treatment, DEI. We see this, young men see this, we all see it, and it's not working. It's not working. It's favoring one gender over the other. It's not equality. It's inequality in the opposite direction. And the problem with that is that women want a man who makes as much or more than them. When they want to marry, when they are ready to marry, and they find a man, that man, they want him overwhelming to make as much or more. It's bred into their psychology. It's not about money. It's about being able to acquire possessions to provide for adequately for the development of the children. For a woman who is defenseless while she's pregnant, this goes back to the beginning of time, and so now it's turned into finance. It's no longer about much about protection, and it's about finance, which turns into food and shelter. And young men, when they think about these issues and they look at both parties and they have one to choose from, they're choosing from the Republicans now, because the Democrats are totally silent. They're totally silent about young men's issues, about the family issues, the difficulty of families creation. They're silent about it. And then the ones who are vocal about it, you know, the helping feminists who go on TV and say, well, the pickings are slim, there's no one to choose from, where's all the good men gone? Well, what you're actually saying is, where's all the good jobs gone? Where have all the good jobs gone? Because a man needs a good job. Without a good job, he is not an option for marriage. He's not marriage material without a good job, and without income that can provide a thriving lifestyle for him, her, and at least one child, you know, and maybe 2 or 3. I mean, what's wrong with having 3 children? Boomers had 6, 8, 9. Now that's literally impossible. Financially, it's impossible. The only ones that do that are the psychotic billionaires, right? Those are the only ones doing what used to be normal just 50 years ago. So young men recognize this, men in general, not just young, my generation, millennial, young Gen X, they recognize that the Democratic Party has turned its back on them, and it's not even listening. It's not even listening to even have the conversation about accepting some responsibility in this fight for equality. Has turned into some revenge plot, and it's destroying our country. Literally, it's destroying our country. 30% marriage rate among Gen Z by the time they hit 30. So the next Gen A, that's going to be what, 15 if the trends continue, and then the generation after that's going to be what, 8 if the trends continue. We're talking about the complete collapse of the American society, and it's the Democrats' fault. Right now, it's the Democrats' fault because they're not speaking up and they're not saying anything about how to change it. They're not having the conversation, just like I am right now. It can be done. It can be changed. And you have to be willing to say that, okay, the way things are going, this hyper feminization, this DEI initiatives where we are just doing everything we can to hurt men, and especially white men who are severely underprivileged. White men at large, the great majority of them are poor, and they have no privilege. It's been whatever privilege white men had, that's gone. That was gone a decade, a century ago. And here's the thing: no one agrees with oppression of others. They really don't. A very few minority of people think that's okay. So you're demonizing people at large, a whole population of people who by and large are good people and don't deserve it. And you can only beat a dog so much before it either attacks you or it runs away. And right now, men are choosing to run away because they realize that if they attack you, that's the end of society right there. That's the end of everything. So men are trying to keep society together while it's collapsing in front of our very eyes. And we're desperately asking for anyone in politics to recognize this and to do something about it, because it's obvious when you really start to see where the problems have started 3, 4, 5 decades ago, and where we are now. It's obvious that it's not getting better, it's only getting worse. It's because of initiatives that specifically have tried to harm generations of men who didn't deserve it. And when you demonize people like that, they're like I said, they're gonna run away, or they're gonna attack you. And men don't want to attack our women. We love women. We love our women. We want to take care of our women. We want them to be safe and protected. But we don't want to be attacked for our nature, and we don't want to be labeled as inherently broken or fundamentally unvalued, because we are people at the end of the day, and we all got to take care of each other one way or the other. The nihilism of today is probably at peak, really. And that has a lot to do with the breakdown of the family. The lack of family support. When you grow up and you don't have family support, it stings. It's something that you crave for on a biological, like a deep level, deep in your gut. You crave for family connection and strength and bond. With the way society is, it's so hard to trust people. You can literally, the only people you can trust these days is your family. And the more that breaks down, it's just not how America was meant to be. And there's been surveys, even more proof for young men to see. Surveys have been conducted on both conservatives and Republicans, or conservatives and Democrats and liberals. And when asked, are you more concerned about young boys or girls in society? These days with the difficulties of how kids grow up and everything, are you more concerned about girls or boys? And Republicans, conservatives were overwhelmingly more concerned about boys, and liberals, Democrats were overwhelmingly more concerned about girls, which again is just another example that the Democrats are just totally disconnected. The leadership, they're disconnected from the reality, to continue to think that girls are discriminated against in society, when the truth is that it's the boys and the men who face discrimination in society. And there's a huge disconnect in this reality. College women overwhelmingly believe that women face discrimination today. Something like 80+% of college educated women believe that the women gender faces discrimination today in society. And only something like 25% of them think that men face discrimination in society. And when I hear that, that's almost 100% of women think they face discrimination in society. Excuse me, Boy Scouts would like to say something. Men only gyms and clubs would like to have a word with you about that. So I can't think of one instance where men are like able to have their own space and society. Like can you think of one? Boy Scouts, now they had Girl Scouts. What was wrong with Girl Scouts? And they took it away, and now it's Boy Scouts. Boys and girls are now Boy Scouts. Make that make sense. Okay. Men used to have clubs. This was really important, these clubs, for community and for camaraderie and bonding. We have no social spaces anymore. Nowhere for young adults and, old, and on up to, other than the bar, to go socialize. Back in the boomer days, they had like clubs where they would go and hang out, and even the women would go too. The girls would go and hang out, and they would dress nice, and they had like a decorum. They had they weren't just savages and just they tried to be presentable. But this was back in a day when we want to get back to that. I think people want to get back to something that looks like that, where we have social clubs where we can go and we can dress nice and try and go and track the mate. Like, that's literally what it was. But a lot of that's gone, because that leisure activity and stuff, that only happens when you have the finance to do so. If you're working all the time to pay the bills and you never have any money to enjoy your own free time, you're not going to be able to go to a club. A lot of things have to change, and one thing that needs to change right away, if the Democrats want to attract any more male voters, is they need to put men on their list of constituents that they cater to on their website. Right now, the Democratic Party's website has a list of constituents that it caters to. It's got minorities and immigrants and oppressed people, and I have empathy, so I'm right there with you on some of these things. It's got women, doesn't have men. This is a problem. How do you put women on your list of constituents, Democrat Party, I'm talking to you, leadership, and you don't put men? Are you effing kidding me? You guys are in self-destruct mode. You're on suicide watch. You don't know what the hell you're doing, and it's intentional. You've self-destruct. You've inflicted the wound your own self. You've cut your own throat. And I don't know what to say other than you need to really, have some coming to Jesus moments, individually, in quiet, about, and you need to do a little research about the diminishing American family and the dwindling of marriage and the diminishing of job prospects and the lack of jobs and the lack of good paying jobs. And then you want to compound that with the demonization of the men gender at large, young men, called masculinity toxic, and completely dissolve yourself of any responsibility for what it means to teach young boys how to behave and what it means to be a man. And this goes for women too, you girls too, for teach young girls how to behave and what it means to be a woman. We don't do that anymore. So then you want to be surprised Pikachu face, that no one behaves in the way that you expect when you don't teach them anything, and then you want to demonize them, and you're going to lose votes, and you're going to lose elections, and it's going to continue to happen, and I'm not sorry. You know, to me, it sounds like a lot of penis envy. You're mad you don't have an extra title, or you know, you're not the CEO instead of the CFO. Maybe you need to focus on turning that penis envy into finding a husband and being a good woman and being a good wife instead of trying to be both.